Hi, this is Lisa DeMonte from mylegal.com. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and we are here at the Georgetown University Law Center for the last day of a three-day conference, Law Firm Evolution, Brave New World or Business as Usual. I'm delighted to be here this morning with Tom Morgan. Tom is Oppenheimer Professor of Antitrust and Trade Regulation Law at the George Washington University. Welcome. Yes. Good morning.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have you here with us this morning, Tom. Yesterday, you were part of a panel discussing how lawyers are going to be different in the future, in the 21st century. And as part of that, I think you talked about how the education of lawyers is, or law students, I should say, is going to need to be different. Tell us a little bit about what you mean.
Well, what's happening is that instead of the world we once knew, in which lawyers were thought to be basically identical, they obviously had different personalities and they might concentrate in slightly different areas, they really were at least imagined to be more or less alike. And as a result, we tended to have fairly standardized curricula in legal education, and the idea was that the student learns from us how to be the lawyer that he or she wants to be. And now what's changing is that lawyers' roles and what lawyers do is really changing dramatically, so that law schools need to become more places where students come to make their own career. And while they have to learn some basics, they have to learn what we call to think like a lawyer. Essentially, the task is to, for us, to learn to adapt to the demands that our students are going to face.
It is changing dramatically out there for sure, so I think the law students are going to be needing additional skills for them to be competitive, especially in the international marketplace. The competition is going to be much different. Talk a little bit about how that's going to affect their ability to be competitive in the marketplace.
Well, you've hit it exactly. The challenge for any given student or lawyer is going to be different, be seen as sufficiently different from the rest of the world that somebody ought to come to them rather than the million or so other people who the client could hire. And that really does require that students, for example, develop language skills, develop cultural understanding, develop any one of a number of things, including skills in things other than law, whether it be business skills or engineering or science. There are all kinds of things that can make a given lawyer sufficiently different and sufficiently better that somebody's going to retain them, and they're going to have an interesting and exciting career. But we can't make that happen for them by simply trying to turn them out in a single mold.
So talk a little bit, Tom, for us about the consensus, at least among some scholars out there, that perhaps one of the things that the law school should be doing is formulating an apprentice or an internship program, sort of like what medical students do. How do you feel about that? Do you take a different approach, and if so, what is that approach?
Well, I think what we need to do is recognize that each part of the educational process does some things better than others, and education is ultimately a lifelong activity. If we once thought that we could train a lawyer who would do the same thing for his or her 40 or 50-year career, we don't think that anymore. So there's going to be a continuing process of learning, and part of that process is going to be working in and learning from experience in the kind of practice setting that the young lawyer hopes to to be involved in. And the reason the apprenticeship is useful is that you do have to learn how law is practiced in the environment that the particular lawyer is going to be in. The idea that we would produce a single model and then that person could be dropped anywhere is simply no longer true.
We heard yesterday during the discussion about a number of global law firms who were really incorporating within their training program on-the-job training, or practical training, I guess would be a better way to describe it. So a couple of firms have complete programs where attorneys are going to into the actual corporate office and doing the things that they would actually be doing as they are practicing law. Talk a little bit about that and what your feelings are about that, and how that can be perhaps incorporated into the law school program, or maybe the law school's working in conjunction with the law firms.
Well, I think the real answer is that we don't know yet exactly how that's going to work out. It's expensive for the firms, for the clients that have these young lawyers working with them. We believe that the gains are going to justify those costs, but we aren't sure just what the balance is going to be. What is happening now in accreditation standards in law schools is that there seems to be more of an openness to a variety of outside experiences. That is, it doesn't all have to happen within the four walls of the law school. And to the extent we can integrate these even for-profit experiences, even experiences where students may receive pay for part of the time they're working in the law firm, to the extent we can work those into the law school training program, we're going to have a program that will ultimately produce better lawyers.
So you see it really as a collaborative sort of partnering kind of situation between the law schools and the law firms to help us all deliver the lawyer that can meet the requirements of the 21st century.
It's collaborative between the law schools and the employers, but in particular, it involves the students. That is, the students, I think, are going to be the drivers. The students are going to come to us and say, I have this opportunity. Now, how do we work this into to my program? And back to my initial insight that law schools are going to have to do more listening and are going to have to see themselves not as producing a product that we best understand, but helping students become the lawyers that they are capable of becoming. Then when we start to do that, then we'll start to get it right.
Well, looks like we've got a lot going on and a lot of changes on the horizon, so it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years.
Well, they're interesting and they're also exciting. I think we're going to do better in the future.
Very exciting. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye-bye.